I am the chair once again for the festival, and I would like permission for the committee to apply for an LCBO special occasion permit to be held June 12th, 13th, and 14th down at Riverside Park. The liquor permit will be in my name again, and so we're looking that council proclaims that the festival is a municipally significant event, so I can do that.
I would move that we declare that as a community event.
And seconder? Linda? Any discussion? All in favor? Carried.
The second request would be an exception to extend the noise control bylaw for the evening of June 12th and 13th down at the park until 1 a.m. As submitted, you have a letter, I believe, for that.
Yes. So moved. From Trevor and Yolanda. All in favor? Carried.
You should also have a letter for the hawkers and peddlers license. We have requested.
It's under a different report.
Oh, is it?
So we will get to it.
Okay. So this is one of the biggest things why I'm here. The municipality is to review the agreement for the midway that we are planning to get. It's from Carter's Company. We're looking to get it booked. I understand it's been to legal and through a few different areas. The location is yet to be confirmed. Hopefully down at the park. So, I'm not sure really where that.
And that's later in the agenda as well.
Okay, good. And other than to authorize a donation from council for park rental, term tent permit fees, and wages for the lifeguards that we will require for cardboard boat race on June 13th.
Kathy?
If council remembers, you directed senior management team to prepare a report, a policy on donations and waiving of fees. Pat's been working very hard on that report, and it's almost ready for council. We just want our new CAO to review it before it comes to council. So any of the requests that we've had for donations or waiving of fees have been put on hold until we have that policy in place. So we will consider that once our policy is in effect.
Yeah. And the last thing on the list, basically I'm going to provide the letter to North Huron Rec and Facilities. I work with Pat basically to finish that stuff, including the municipal alcohol policy and documents such as that.
Okay. Then I think as the meeting goes along, we'll get all those things taken care of. So, more power to the committee, and thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you.
Jim?
Could we move down to 6.43 and do them right now in this meeting? Just so that if there's any questions come up, that they could be dealt with.
Let you do that, and the first part is the hawkers and peddlers, and possible motion that council, the township of North Huron hereby authorize charging outside vendors for Musical Muskrat Festival $200 for a hawkers and peddlers license. And further, that the Musical Muskrat Festival Committee, as a committee of council, upon completion of the events, will be reimbursed for the fees paid.
I'll make that motion.
James and Trevor? Any discussion? Trevor?
What is the normal fee?
That's it.
It is the normal fee, $200? Okay.
Yeah. That's what it was for homecoming.
I can't remember.
Okay. And Bill?
I have a question. Are you exempting local businesses from the fee, from the hawkers and peddlers fee?
Yes.
Yes,
So anybody that's local within North Huron doesn't have to pay the $200?
correct. And that we will need a copy of the budget to go along, and so that we will need that. But that is pretty well in line from the meetings, so that that should be okay. We'll have a vote on this one. All in favor of this motion? Carried? Okay. And that the council of the township of North Huron authorizes the reeve and clerk to sign an agreement on behalf of the Musical Muskrat Festival with Carter Shows Inc. for the operation of a midway at the 2015 Musical Muskrat Festival. Do I have a mover? James and Yolanda? Any discussion? Trevor?
The only discussion I would have is that I am assuming, based on the conversation with Tiffany and Pat, is that the site will be looked at and all that stuff the same as anything else in the municipality?
It will be gone.
So, okay, that's all I need to know.
All in favor? Carried. Okay. Okay, back to the Reeves report. An interesting week for me, that had Musical Muskrat Festival meeting last night, a couple of meetings earlier today, and tomorrow will be County Council Committee of the Whole Day 1, and Thursday and Friday, County Council will have a priority setting session entailing 15 hours of discussion on priorities for the county and how the county will move forward into a longer-term plan. So I think that takes care of the county council report as well. Moving forward, the financial report, financial and treasury, bills and accounts. How does council receive them? Questions? So the motion that's suggested is that the council of the township of North Huron approve bills and accounts in the amount of $777,563.96 as of April 1st.
So moved.
Rodden and Yolanda? Any discussion? All in favor?
Sorry, I just have a question. One question is, when I see Township of North Huron, wages and benefits, is that just moving money from one department to another?
Yes,
from Okay. Okay, that's, I had another, just bear with me here 1 second. I think that was, yes, that is it. Thank you.
Okay. Moving forward to 6.4, department heads The health and safety, I think is, all in favor? Okay, we debated those. So, some reason I was in a hurry. For health and safety, is there any questions on that report? If not, we'll move to 6.42, Director of Corporate Services Clerk for the Union Gas. Is there anything other than what's written, Kathy?
Nothing further than the report I included in your package, and there will be a bylaw further on in the agenda to approve the agreement with Union Gas. This is a standard 20-year agreement that we enter into, and it's the same agreement that's used province-wide for all municipalities.
6.4. That the Council of the Township of North Huron approves the form of draft bylaw and franchise agreement attached hereto, and authorizes the submission thereof to the Ontario Energy Board for approval pursuant to the provisions of Section 9 of the Municipal Franchises Act. And further, the Council of the Township of North Huron requests that the Ontario Energy Board make an order declaring and directing that the assessment of the municipal electors to the attached draft bylaw and franchise agreement pertaining to the corporation of the Township of North Huron is not necessarily pursuant to the provisions of Section 9, subsection 4 of the Municipal Franchises Act. Do I move it? Trevor and Bill? Any questions? All in favor? Carried. We've already done that one. 6.4.4, Director of Public Works. There's a staff report on purchase of replacement grader blades for the 2015 season. Kelly, anything?
Is any questions?
Okay.
Are these blades just for 1 year?
No. Okay. No. It's been 3 years since we purchased blades, so, okay.
Okay. And that there's the printed suggested motion, and further to authorize the purchase prior to adoption of the 2015 budget, so we can move ahead on that.
I'll make that a motion.
James and Brockwater. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, gravel tenders. The Council of the Township of North Huron authorized the Director of Public Works to advertise for tenders to crush and stockpile 23,000 metric tons of granular M gravel in the township pit in the East Wawanosh ward, and to tender, load and haul and apply of 23,000 metric tons of granular M road to township roads as specified from the township pit. Do I have a mover? James and Bill? All in favor? Carried. Okay. And for pickup truck tenders, that the Council of the Township of North Huron authorize the Director of Public Works to advertise for tenders to purchase 2 new 2015 half-ton four-wheel drive extended cab pickup trucks.
I have a question.
Brock, or, yeah,
Are these trucks are to be added to the fleet? They're not just necessarily exclusive to Public Works, or?
No, No, this is for the fleet.
Right.
Spoke about it.
I move approval.
Okay,
I
Trevor?
have a question. So this is, these two trucks, Kelly, are replacing what?
There'll be two that will be dropped from the fleet in the fall, yeah.
Okay.
Seconder. James? All in favor? Carried. Okay, 6.4.5, Director of Recreation and Facilities, Report 1, Wingham Town Hall Theater. Pat?
Thank you. Requested by council after the first delegation was presented from the Wingham Town Hall Theatre Committee was for council to sit down with that committee and sort of look at how the operations of that theater could move forward, and looking at the costs and what that would actually entail. So it was actually a really good process that we went through with the committee, and we had a meeting here with everybody and had an opportunity to explain some of the issues that is challenging when the theater is operating 8:30 to 4:30 when other operations are going on here. And so what I provided here is it's really a report that outlines what the costs will be, and I can explain that. And then the second piece is, you know, the staff really have no objection to the reopening as long as the operating parameters presented here in this report are enforced as part of the agreement to opening. And that's just providing some blackout times when work is being done here, what can be rented. We provided some parameters around staffing versus volunteer work, how they would access this building, what they would have access to. You know, if a security deposit is given and that group does all of the cleanup afterwards, then that would be returned. What equipment is provided in the hall and what would that group have to actually provide themselves. That the township is not responsible for marketing shows or selling the tickets, that is whoever is hosting the show. They're really just going to rent that theater as they would rent a hall, an arena, or a ballpark through the recreation department. Once the fundraising is done, once the capital improvements are complete, it's my understanding that that committee will dissolve and the facility will then be rented through the Recreation and Facilities Department. We also had a good discussion about potential rates and fees. These are not set in stone, but this is, the idea would be that it would be a community facility, that the initial ability to get in there for a community group, if you're having an event of under 100 participants to watch, would just be $150. But if your event grows, you're almost being charged an extra $2 per seat. So at 101 to 150 seats sold, it would be $250, and so on. So that it really can be used by small groups and large groups and be affordable when you're planning your ticket sales. We also talked everything about snow removal, some future considerations, and then really tried to establish some financial impact, which is on the last page. And I just want to try and explain what I attempted to do here. Council's familiar with this format of a budget page. And what I tried to do was take a look at the cost, for example, the elevator in this building right now is being paid through the town hall budget, 100% of that particular expense. If the theater were to open, we would allocate some of that funds to the cost of the theater, but they would not be new costs to the Township of North Huron. So what I tried to do here was show in the budget that we would start to allocate some of the expenses to operate that facility from the town hall to that particular budget account. And under new expenses in that right-hand column are the additional expenses we believe would be incurred should that facility be opened. But a lot of that is based on estimates. We have really no experiential data once the new HVAC units are in place, how much the new natural gas and electricity bill would be. We only have what it's currently costing us. So I had to make some experience, or sort of extrapolate some potentially new costs to that items, such as electricity, janitorial supplies. That was mostly additional, ice melt and things like that, that we have a pretty good idea what it costs. Natural gas and heat, once again, uncertain what the additional cost will be, but right now, we're not heating this building on weekends, but that might be the case once this facility is being run on weekends. The part-time staff is additional cost for cleaning and maintenance. That would be, so if there was a show, we would have to come in and clean and maintain for that facility. So there's some additional part-time hours allocated to open that facility. So tried to be reasonable in my estimates, however, without true experiential data, it's difficult. But I estimate that the cost would be about $9,300 on top of what the township is already paying to maintain this facility in order for us to open that facility. Also, with no experiential data on what the rentals would be, we estimated at about $2,000 might be what is achieved through community use. And maybe some commercial use if there was a group that was going to have a lecture or something up there, or a professional show, but that's our estimates there. So I don't know if there's any questions on how I tried to provide this data.
Trevor?
So, I think I like the layout of this potential agreement. What I struggle with is a couple of things. One, the rates and fees, in the fact that how are you gonna police only 100 seats? Like how are you gonna police if they rent it from 0 to 100, how do you know they're only gonna use 100? Like, it seems to be open-ended in the fact that they could request to have $150, but they actually have 300 people there. So,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
and my next part was, I struggle with, like, I don't know how, I've never been in the theater, so I can't suggest how big it is, but I don't know why we couldn't clean it using the same time that we have with our staff today. Meaning additional, I know it's only $1,800, but I just don't see where that time can't be allocated from something else, and why it's additional cost is my question. So those are the only questions I really have from the numbers. That's really all I had, but Pat, if you can answer it, that'd be great.
They're good questions. So to answer the first one, we actually started with a formula where we were going to charge a certain price per seat. And then that question came to us, well, who's going to stand there and count the bodies coming in the seats? Oh, it was 48, not 49, and make sure we charge the right amount. So because we have this in sort of a 0 to 100, 101 to 150, we felt that that would allow the municipality, should it want to go in and do a visual check on a show, is it sold out, is it half full, is it a quarter full, that would be able to very easily visually tell you what was the rental rate. It's also some trust in the groups using it, how many seats they're selling. They're going to have to report how many people, how many tickets they sold. They'll have a budget if we want to ask for that as proof of the seats. This, once again, is not necessarily set in stone, but it's a guideline that we wanted to work with as far as a pricing per seat plan, so that we weren't renting a 500-seat theater when a group is really only going to have 50 people in there, and we wanted to make it affordable. Under the cleaning today, right now there is no cleaning being done in the theater. It is not used, it is not cleaned, so that is an additional expense. So when a show comes in, we would have to maintain that facility, vacuum, clean, dust, all the things that we're not doing right now up there. We do some very rudimentary cleaning up there, empty the garbage after, something is in there, but when I say that, nobody's really in there, so there's no garbages to empty, but now there would be. So that cost that I came up with was based on the number of shows and how many hours we would be required to be in there. It's not a number that I've pulled out of, it's based on the potential for number of rentals, a number of hours it would take to clean before and after a show. So what I have here is based on 12 rentals, 8 hours of cleaning per show. But once again, I have no experiential data to go on, so it's an estimate just like the hydro. But if I pull a cleaner out of another building, then I'm not cleaning that building. I don't have an additional person. But where I have an added extra expense, as you'll see, is the municipality will be doing all the full-time salaried work to book within our class system, take the rental, work out the details with a group. That's all going to be done on top of the work we already do. That would not be an additional expense, just the physical job of cleaning that facility.
I'm wondering if there's another category of user. What about a local community group that isn't selling tickets? They want to have a rather large meeting. It's a good facility for that, but they're not going to have any income from it. Could that be a separate category of user, a different price?
I'm not sure why we would charge a different price to someone who's not charging for the facility. We would still have heat, hydro, cleaning, electric, all those things are still part of the expense of using that facility. When somebody's using one of our other facilities but not charging, we still charge the rent.
That's true.
Unless they come in here and we feel it's a strong community event and council has an opportunity to waive those fees. So I'm not sure what the example would be in that case, but I think obviously each rental, and this is just the first stab at it, we would have to work with this committee to understand the best way to rent this facility out. But this was one of our thoughts as an initial step.
Bill?
Pat, just to jump back to your cleaning there for a minute, though, I notice you've got in here, if the group doesn't do their own cleaning, you're going to keep the deposit. So if you have 12 rentals, you've got $1,200 worth of income there. Is that not going to offset your cleaning costs?
It could.
You put it at $1,900, so that's really not an issue.
I guess
From what I can
I
say.
sort of feel like perhaps we're looking at the tree instead of the forest, and that is that there are going to be additional cleaning costs. Even though a group may empty the garbages and tidy up and vacuum the aisles, there will be cleaning that has to be done that those groups are not doing. Vacuuming down the stairs, dusting the railings, and all of those kinds of things. Or will a volunteer group step up and do those for us? We're not there yet, so I'm just trying to show an example of if the municipality is going to be doing the cleaning, there would be some cleaning. If they're not cleaning up to a standard after their show that is anticipated they should do, we may keep their deposit. If they're not emptying their garbages and doing some of the basic steps that a renter should do if they want that deposit back. Another group may say, we're not going to tidy up. Keep our deposit, and then we'll have the money there to pay somebody to do that.
So the cleaning is my point really was, it's a minor issue. What I really want to look at is your community group rates. Personally, I think that's too much money.
I beg your pardon?
Community group rates too much money. I think that you should consider, number one, I don't agree with trying to run it by the seat. Pick a flat rate, whether it's $250 for community groups, and that's it, they can get the whole theater. Similar to the Blythe Theater, you want to rent it? Fine, it's for the day, the whole theater is yours. If you rent one seat, that's your problem. And I think you do the same thing over here with the commercial group rate. I wouldn't even attempt to try and rent that on that basis. I would simply, it's about $700 a day right now, I believe, for the Blythe Theater that Deb and I talked about the other day. $650 for this one. In comparison, I leave that up to you, but I would rather see just a flat $50 commercial rate, and away you go. But I really seriously would like you to just pick a much lower rate in the middle of that group there for the community. Well, let's face it, half the time, and this is going to come back to our plan, community groups will come back to us and ask us to waive that rate anyway. And that might not be the future. We may not be waiving rates, so I would rather see them face a $250 rate that we don't waive than sit there looking at a $550 rate if you follow my thoughts. But I don't think this scaled rental system, I don't think that's the way to go.
Going to Doug. Doug?
Yeah, if I could speak to that, Councillor Bill. We talked about that rate system, and actually this came from the committee. The idea of the per seat charge would, if we have a promoter come into town and they're promoting some bands or they're doing, weekly shows and stuff like that, we'd like to make sure they paid the premium. They're making, if they fill the house, they're gonna make a lot of money on a per seat basis, hopefully. And so it gives the township an opportunity to actually get more money on the rental for the out-of-town show or whatever, the promoter that comes in and fills the house. And it really doesn't cost them anything because they're making money on every seat they do, so the more seats they sell, the more they make. But then we're allowed to push the lower scale down for the small venue that has 50 people coming out to some local music talent show sort of thing. So it is the scale is intended to allow a lower rate at the bottom end. And even if it's a community group that does sell, like let's say we have a theater group that does wildly successful and they sell out the house, so what? Like it's about $2 a seat that they're paying, but they've sold all the seats, so it's not hurting them. So that's really where this is coming from. It is from the committee, and it's in a desire to try to help the township have a low price for local groups, and then and then be able to make more money on the person that is selling the house out, whether it be a local or an outside group. So that's where we're coming from on that. We want to see the town make some money on this thing if they can. So
I appreciate that. Come back through you that Yara, that's why I'm saying that commercial group rate. And I'm going to say right now, I've been in discussions and involved with a promotion group, so I understand how these are booked. Okay. When we get into discussions about booking a theater future, we look at the $650 cost. Our objective would be as a commercial group to sell that entire theater out. If we don't know, that's our risk. So renting me that $250 theater, it's not an issue. Just get rid of it, okay? And take the $650. If I only sell one seat, that's my problem. But at the same time, you reduce your community fee, like you say, down to something like $250. Give the advantage to the community groups. The commercial operators know what they're doing, and the $650 fee. As I said, Blythe Theater, $700 are approximately the same number of seats. You actually have more facilities at the Blythe Theater than you do here. That's not an issue. Look at how many shows are being booked through there. Okay. And
Jim,
I just don't want, I look at this, we're looking at another $28,000 that's going to be part of this committee. Is that going to discourage them? You know what I'm saying? Is because all of a sudden we're starting up, we're trying to get this going, but if we could come in at a cheaper rate, and I don't know that. I'm just saying, for that first year, that's pretty tough to get it up and get it going. But I know we can't do it a whole lot cheaper. But I'm just, if this discourages us and we have nothing, then we're back to the square one.
okay, Trevor?
Sorry, I got to ask, Councillor, where's the number 28,000 coming from?
These two figures here, we got 19,000 in the budget, and we have another
So hold on.
new expense here.
So the new expense is new incremental money. The $19,000 is already being spent whether that door opens or not.
We're only paying for some of those things.
No, we're paying for all
We're
of
not
it.
paying for the custodian and all that up there every week cleaning that building. At least I hope not.
That cost is going from somewhere else. They're already paying from somewhere else.
Sorry, I'll clarify again. The $19,083 was what I would presume to be the full budget for the theater. 10,000 of that, approximately, or 9,000 and change, is already in the township budget. We have to pay for that elevator maintenance, whether some of it's being charged to the theater or not. So the town hall so you will see the town hall budget reduced by about 10,000 and 19,000 becoming a brand new budget called the town hall theater budget. The difference to the township would be $9,000 in expenses, and we're estimating perhaps making $2,000 in revenue. It is non-experiential data, but it is based on some information and talking and looking at records and such. So the township would be looking at approximately a $7,000 operating deficit, maybe. But the reality is, at $250 for rental, you would have to have a lot of rentals to make up the full expense. So I'm just giving you the facts, no matter how we formulate the rentals, that's probably what you're looking at. As more rentals are sold, perhaps more part-time staff would be required for more cleaning, maybe not. It's a guess on an estimation on my part. I wouldn't hire a part-time person to come in to clean 4 hours unless the facility needed 4 hours of cleaning. Right, and Donna just wanted me to add that this is not in the 2015 budget. The funds would probably not likely roll out and have all of the upgrades done by 2015. So this is all us just talking right now on paper.
Trevor.
So, I guess to summarize what I've been hearing about that, from Councillor Knott, you're okay with the elevated fee structure for the community group rate. You're not in favor of the commercial group rate, or you want to get rid of it all.
No, get rid of it all and just pick one rate for the community group, say $250. Doesn't matter about the number of seats, it's just $250 for a hall rent. And the commercial groups pay $650.
So the concern that I have with that is that this needs to be, the whole idea of this should be break even. That should be the intent of this. And if $250 is the number to make it break even, have at it. But I doubt very much so that $250 to rent that facility is a break even.
Those are community groups.
I don't care if
No
it's,
problem with giving them a lower rate. What I don't want you to do is give a reduced rate to commercial operators. Okay? The commercial operator, I'll give you a prime example right now. In Blythe Hall, there were a lot of commercial groups through there. One of them does minimal promotions. Okay, he pays $700 for that hall. He books 50% of the hall. That's his rate, and he makes money with that. There's another operator who pays exactly the same amount for the hall, who does promotion and fills that hall virtually every time. That's up to the operator to decide how he wants to fill it. But you should have a flat rate for it, and it's $550 or $650, but not this graduated rate.
so, sorry, just what I would say then, is I'm confused the fact that we would have, whether it's in Blythe Theatre Hall or the Wingham Theatre Hall, why is the system different? It should be a standard, however we do one, we should do the other. It just would simplify everybody's understanding of what goes on, and whether the number is 250 or 450, it's semantics, it's just the standard should be the idea to break even. I wouldn't support anything other than that, in my opinion.
Pat, if you don't mind.
I was just going to say that I guess this committee came forward when we met very much with the idea that this would become a community facility first and rented to local groups and local shows, whether it's the Bala Bunch wanting to put on a Christmas show or something local, versus having big promoters come in with red green and having that in our theater here. We're not trying to compete with the Blythe Festival, we're trying to complement it and be a different niche. This theater, we call it a theater, it's an auditorium. It's a stage and some seats. The Blythe Festival, our Memorial Hall, has green rooms, sound systems, lighting grids. And so when you're talking about $700, only a portion of that is coming back to the township in rent. They're also paying for a technician to be there to use the festival lights, sound equipment, and all of those kinds of things. If a promoter were coming to our auditorium here, they would have to rent all of that equipment because this has very limited lighting and sound system. In fact, it's owned by a third party, which is
Almost Famous Players.
Almost Famous Players owns that. And so they would have to negotiate whether they could use that or not. So they're a little bit, they're both theaters, they're not apples to apples. I think if the issue here is the fees and rates, we can have more discussion on that and come back from the committee. I can bring the Blythe rates and fees and I can present something on that. The question, I think what we're looking for here is a discussion on, in my estimation, the facility will not break even. It will not be a profit-making center. So council has to have that weighed against the need in this community, the fact that we already have the infrastructure, and do we want to open it? And I think that is what, and Doug can add to that if you want, because I know you've thought long and hard and presented to me many times about the vision that your committee has to go forward and raise this money, and what they see the role of this facility in your facility, and through you, the REIT, if you permit that.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I
You
would
wanna add to
say
that, Doug?
Pat has captured it quite well there. Our primary purpose is to see a facility that's sitting there empty become used again. Our primary goal is that it's for local talent, local shows and that sort of stuff. If we manage to, attract further and manage to drive some revenue from that, great. But, and for us, it's to not have the taxpayers pay for reopening this theater, but raise that through grants and local people stepping up to the plate and sponsoring this. So we look to raise that money without burdening the taxpayers. But I think it's a reality that it was a bit of an eye-opener for me at the staff meeting when Pat presented the numbers that, yeah, it's probably going to cost the township $7,000 a year in a net end result. And the Blythe Theater doesn't run a profit either. Like, it's the way it is with arts, and so we try to keep those costs down to a minimum. But that's what we desire to do, is open it primarily so it's available as a local resource to the Wingham community. Beyond that is bonus. I might add too, like, the rates, we're just made a recommendation, but I wouldn't get hung up on the rates, and they can always be changed, right?
That's true.
The reason we raised the issue of rates in that meeting was we wanted affordable. We wanted that low threshold affordability for the local small person that might, or group that's going to attract 50 people. And we want it to be affordable for that level, and that was where we came from on the rates. But however we arrive at that, and we can always massage and change it as we go forward. So I wouldn't try to get too stuck on the rates.
Well, Kathy?
I think Pat's report summarizes the discussions that staff and the group had regarding the opening of the theater. I think tonight there's a lot of logistics that council still needs some answers on, being rental rates and the theater and making a profit and different things. But I think the group before us tonight, is looking for council's blessing and direction to move forward so that they can start their fundraising, so that they are in a position to reopen the theater. So I think tonight we need council direction to this group, whether you are going to give your blessing for them to go forward, and further on if you are in the agenda further on, you need to entertain their request to make this a committee of council and to appoint someone to sit on their committee. So I think right now what we need from council is your blessing to let this group move forward.
I know we don't have a motion here, but however you want to format that, I mean, I would definitely want to put something forward to support it and get them moving, so.
Pat, is there anything further you would like to add to that?
No, I think that, as I said in the report, that's council's decision whether to move forward, but moving forward means that we are opening it. Opening it means we're probably not going to make money at it, but it is a community facility, and that and the community right now, committee agrees, as long as we can operate within the parameters that staff have outlined, they do not object to the opening. We have no objections, as long as council's going in.
So would you like me to make a motion then supporting the formation of a committee to go ahead with the renovation?
Raising money for the
For
renovations.
the renovations and reopening of the theater? I'll make that motion.
And it's a committee of council.
That's further
that-
on.
That's
second
further on in the.
That's
Further on, okay.
That's it. And Yolanda's seconding it.
Vote.
All in favor? Saying it's carried. Okay. And the other report from Recreation Facilities is the Wingham Farmers Market usage agreement.
It is under my agenda. I would be happy to share my time with Connie Goodall. It was Connie on vacation last week, so me finishing this up. It's a joint report. She's been the one that has forged ahead and set up the meetings. Their committee met with Connie, myself, Public Works, and building officials. So Connie, I'm not sure if you want to take this on, or it's really been your project up to this point, and
I guess, as we know, the Farmers Market Committee did attend council the last time and had actually requested permission to move forward with planning for their market on what has been now named 160 Farley Lane, which is the municipal lot kind of behind Frosty Queen and between the CIBC parking lot. So at that point in time, they kind of received the go forward. So as Pat has just said, we've kind of met and kind of talked over some of the logistics about really how we would make that happen. And in this report, they have kind of outlined some of the things that we have certainly talked about. Again, washroom agreement, health unit, insurance, all those things that we have looked at to come to this report. So, and I don't know, Pat,
yeah, I guess what we're looking for is, we don't have enough time to come today with the agreement completely written, but the terms of the agreement have been agreed upon between the Farmers Market Group and staff, and what we're looking for council is to say, this can move forward. That actual agreement will come to council. The parameters of that will be similar to what you see here. They would like to start marketing, advertising, signing their vendors, and getting moving on this. And they requested staff to bring that forward to council again to get confirmation that this is going to be a go. And then the actual agreement will come in a few weeks once we've had everybody write it and agree to it and sign it, and insurance things have all been, but the insurance things have been looked at, and we have confidence in this group.
James?
I'll make a motion, the recommendation is there.
I'll second it.
Okay.
One quick question, are they gonna bring forward a budget just to show us how they're funding the market when you bring the agreement forward?
I don't
Because
think that's part of
The
their
farmer's market
requirement.
is going to fund itself, correct?
Yes.
That's the intent. So just, are they going to ask to be a committee of council in the future?
Nope.
No?
no, they are actually registering themselves with Farmers Market Ontario,
Yeah.
and they will be run by a board of directors and registered with Farmers Market Ontario. They are not requesting to be a committee of council.
I would just ask that, I wouldn't mind seeing a budget, if they don't mind just showing us a budget of where they're planning on bringing this from, for funding.
I'm not sure that we can ask for that
I'm-
inside our agreement with them. What we're really saying is you can have it on our property under all of these terms and conditions. And it's more about public safety and bathrooms and where you're getting your power and how you're gonna clean up the space and how you're handling your garbage. But, I mean, we can make that a side request if that is something council desires. But this is more about, there is an opportunity, if you read the recommendation and make that sort of the motion, that council will review the success of the market prior to renewing the permission in 2016. So we want to make sure that they are going to live by everything that they have set out inside of their terms, and who the vendors will be, and how their market will run, and how many vendors they will have in the space, and all that kind of stuff.
James?
There was a paper that came in the mail today advertising a lot of the farmers markets, and this one was advertised there. So let's get on with the show.
So, all in favor of the motion? Moving to Director of Finance, the excess farmland rental.
Yes, thank you for your visit. So
I put a summary of the opening of the agricultural land bids on your table tonight. And as per the information on who placed what bid is on the back of that sheet. And then on the front of the sheet is our recommendation for the acceptance of those particular bids. So as outlined in the recommendation, as staff, we're recommending that the Hutton Height property, the submitted price for our Warwick be accepted at $230 an acre, and the same for the approximate 7 acres at the Wingham Sewage Lagoon, and for our Warwick at the same price, $230 per acre. And the Wingham Cemetery property of approximately 4.8 acres it's recommended to go with Calvin Metcalf at $50 per acre. So that would, of course, would be subject to the execution of formal lease agreements, which was the basis of this whole exercise. And there were no bids received on the other two pieces of property, and staff would like to make a further recommendation regarding those two pieces at a later date. So tonight, at this point, we're just looking for council to provide any further information that you wish, and then consider the recommendation before you on accepting the bids as reported.
So moved. Bill, seconding.
Just a question.
Jim.
This is a 5-year term,
Yes, correct.
and will we re-tender again at the end of 5 years, the same as what we've done here? Or
That's the intent.
Okay.
In 5 years, I'm not sure what we'll do.
you might not be this
I know.
5 years. Kathy will be.
But yes, it's a 5-year term.
I knew that would bring life into
You woke me up there when you said it'll be here another 5 years.
All in favor of the motion? Carried. Okay, moving to new business, 8.1. William Town Hall Theater Committee request for support for the initiative to reopen William Town Hall. And the motion that the Council of the Township of North Hall hereby designates Wingham Town Hall Theater Committee as a committee of council. And further, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby appoints one of the councillors as North Huron's representative to the Wingham Town Hall Theater Committee. Do I have somebody?
Two portions, or are we gonna do this in one?
I'll do it as one.
I'll make the motion, put your land in as the committee member.
You're agreeable? Okay,
Second.
Alex seconds. Thank you, Yolanda. Okay, any further questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, 8.2, drinking water source protection request for support to extend the municipal implementation fund deadline, and that eligible municipalities be allowed to put unused funds into reserves. There's a motion printed here for us. James, you want to move it? Do I have a seconder? Bill? Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, this is the one that I always love. Barn Dance Historical Society, 18th Annual Barn Dance Campout Jamboree, May 21st to 24th, 2015. And the request is for the exemption from the security provisions in the rental agreement for campout, being as they've never had brawls and fights.
Plastic fiddles over each other's heads.
We're too tired.
Do I have have a mover?
So moved.
Trevor and Yolanda? Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, moving to council information. If anybody wants to bring things forward for special Trevor.
I would like to make comment. I found 9.7 news release regarding the joint and several liability. I found that very, very interesting in the fact that it seems like there seems to be a lot of jockeying for position on where municipalities lie and whether the sitting government or the opposition sits on where that is. So I think I don't see us having any change anytime soon, but I think it's interesting at least that Randy is basically put both feet in. He's battling till the end for municipalities, small and rural municipalities, so good for him.
Are you even recommending such a thing as a letter to him? Congratulating him
No,
on?
we've talked to him, this council's talk, or not this council, prior councils have talked to him, thanking him. I don't think thanking him is anymore. I think he understands what the positions are with the municipalities, and I think he's, from his constituents and even outside his constituency, he's battling for us, so.
Yes. Brock?
I still think there's value in shaking that tree. I can recall quite a number of meetings where members of this existing government party have supported us, just to the nth degree. Oh yes, we're going to get rid of that clause. That's a terrible burden, or potentially, on municipalities. And I think it would be good to write to the MPP, but also to the Premier and the leaders of the other parties.
Are you making that?
I make that a motion.
Bill seconds. Further discussion? Or just that we think joint and several liability, the way it currently is vastly unfair to municipalities and ratepayers at the lower tiers in general.
Absolutely.
All in favor? Okay. 9.5, Jeff Leal, Minister of Agriculture, Food, Rural Affairs, Natural Gas Expansion Plans, as being part of a group that met with him at Good Roads, Roma, that it was his assistant that said, well, really, we've had that money and it's been allocated towards natural gas expansion. But in February, we were told that it would be a minimum of 3 to 4 months before anybody knew anything or any more details, because it would be out of Brad Duguid's ministry that they were lead on it. So they're working on it, but it's going to be a long time at the rate they're working on it. Just thought it good to bring council up to speed that there's a number of ministries taking credit for doing something there, but it's a long road before they're going to get anything done. Anything else, or?
Probably 9.3, Brock and I wanted 2 there. If I make the motion, Brock might need a second. Oh, you're not there yet, Brock?
No, I'm just afraid it's a conflict of interest.
That's a motion.
Well, I'll second it. Take the risk.
Okay, any discussion?
Well, conflict.
All in favor then? Okay. June is seniors month then. Trevor,
I'll make a motion to, correspondence be ordered, read, and filed.
Second.
seconds. All in favor? Thank you. Carried. Correspondence, there's 3 points there. Does somebody want to put their names onto the motion? Trevor and Yolanda? That we, correspondence be ordered, read, and filed. All in favor? Carried. In committee reports, health and safety, any questions? Blythe Business Improvement Area, Board of Management, we have to do a motion there on the appointments to the Board of Management as presented. Bill?
I'd just like to make a note that, to the best of my knowledge at this point, the paperwork from Jenny Smith that Rick Elliott was supposed to forward indicating that she's a tenant, everything's been received except Jenny Smith's letter, unless you've received it. Did you? Okay.
Okay. Seconder? Right. I think the Bill moved it.
Yeah.
Trevor seconds. All in favor? Carried. There's Wingham BIA minutes from March 25th. Any questions? That's fine. Maitland Conservation Authority, there's January and February minutes. Any questions? Okay. North Huron Police Services Board, minutes of February 17th meeting. Any questions? Okay. Moving to bylaws, bylaw number 22, 2015, being a bylaw to regulate or prohibit signs within the township of North Huron. Bylaw number 22, 2015, being a bylaw to regulate or prohibit signs within the township of North Huron, be introduced and read a first and second time.
So moved.
Gordon and Campbell, all in favor?
I have a question. Is this just a revision of an older bylaw? Or is it fresh and new?
This is exactly the signed bylaw that we are using now, that we passed in 2007. The only change to this bylaw is on page 9, section H at the bottom of the bylaw, the section on freestanding and mobile signs. And this section, with consultation with staff, Connie, and the chief building official, and the Wingham BIA, was rewritten to accommodate Sand Report signs that the BIA is going to be hoping to initiate up and down the main street of Wingham. I don't know if Yolanda would like to, Doug was part of that little project, but maybe Yolanda would like to speak to it. But that's the only section that we've
Okay.
rewritten.
Thank you.
Yolanda can answer any questions you have about it, but
Trevor?
I don't have a question. I think I'll say the same thing I've said before. when we get these bylaws, it would be very helpful to know what the change is prior to tonight. Like, I could have read the whole thing, but I would have to go find 2007s and look at put them side by side to know what the difference is, as opposed to just telling me what the difference is. It would be just easier, not that I'm lazy, but it would be easier for me to get to the point as opposed to funnel through 20 pages that I don't really need to.
Okay, and basically the same bylaw, read a third and final time, signed with the reeve and clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Do I have a minute, Bill?
We have to vote on the first one too.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't passed the first and second.
And we'll vote on the first and second. Carried. Okay.
I'll move the third and final reading.
All right, move, so you can second.
Fine, I'll second it.
Can I?
All in favor? Carried.
Can I make one short comment about this? It's now going to be a business owner's requirement to apply for a permit for these signs now?
Always has been.
It always has been, okay. So there are a bunch of signs that have now cropped up in Blythe. Can we somehow have just a letter that we can send to the Blythe BIA to John Stewart?
Copy of this bylaw.
What's that?
Copy of this bylaw
Yeah.
can go.
And as council's representative on the BIA, we can address that.
Yeah, can you send me a PDF then of this file? Just this one.
Okay. Bylaw number 23, 2015. A bylaw to authorize a franchise agreement between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron and Union Gas Limited. Being a bylaw to authorize a franchise agreement between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron and Union Gas Limited be introduced, read a first and second time.
So move.
Trevor and James, all in favor? Carried. And bylaw number 24, 2015. A bylaw to authorize the sale of land. Bylaw number 24, 2015. Be a bylaw to authorize the sale of land be introduced, read a first and second time. Yolanda and Bill, all in favor? Carried.
Just a question, Mr. Reeve, we didn't do the third and final reading for the natural gas, is that not necessary?
As per my staff report, it doesn't get third reading until after Ontario Energy Board.
Okay, no, I just noticed it on there.
Yeah, it's the Ontario Energy Board has to
No,
agree
that's fine.
with first and second reading. Okay. Bylaw number 24, 2015, being a bylaw to authorize the sale of land. Be read a third and final time, signed by the Reeve clerk and engrossed in the bylaw book. James and Bill, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 25, 2015, being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve clerk to sign on behalf of council an agreement between Carter Shows and the Corporation of the Township of North Huron for midway services for the Musical Muskrat Festival. Be introduced, read a first and second time. Bill? And,
I'll second the discussion.
well, I was gonna take Brock.
That's
but-
fine. Brock and
You have
I have a question.
discussion?
I just have
Go
a
ahead.
question. So, I should have asked this when Tiffany was here. In the staff report, maybe Connie can answer it. When it says the $4,500 will be covered by the committee.
Yeah.
But if the Midway earns $35,000 in gross that it'll
Sales.
be it'll be refunded? Who's
Yeah.
refunding it? We, as in,
No, then
Carter's.
the Carter shows will give back the $4,500 if they make over 35,000.
that's all I wanna know. Okay,
They consistently do that at Ripley.
perfect. I'll buy some shares.
All in favor? And third, sorry.
That's okay.
And
I'm gonna have to
that,
sign
the agreement between North Huron and Midway Services for the Musical Muskrat Festival be read a third and final time, signed by the Regan clerk and engrossed in the bylaw book. James and Bill, all in favor? And bylaw number 26, 2015, being a bylaw to appoint a municipal weed inspector for the corporation of the township of North Huron. And have that introduced, read a first and second time. Bill? And James? All in favor? Carried. And the municipal weed inspector for the township of North Huron, township of North Huron be read a third and final time, signed by the Regan clerk and engrossed in the bylaw book. Brock and Bill. All in favor? Carried.
Sorry, Reeve, I have to ask. What exactly will Mr. Kelly Church be doing as the weed inspector?
Trying to maintain the quality of our weeds.
There's a Noxious Weeds Act, and it is illegal to have those on your property. And if somebody complains about noxious weeds, he will make a visit to verify that they're there, and there will be plans to eradicate noxious weeds. Is that the best way to explain it?
did it wonderfully, yes.
And it has happened.
Good for you, Kelly.
Already, and I haven't been the weed inspector as of yet. It's already happened. We were told last year. Bit of a learning curve there.
We're moving into council reports and inquiries. Brock.
I'm not sure if I'm just out of touch, but it strikes me that we should be seeing a lot of activity in terms of encouraging businesses to come and set up new businesses, industrial type of businesses in the properties that we have that are eligible for becoming rezoned for industrial purposes. My question is, are we waiting until we conclude the agreement with Morris Turnberry before we really get serious about this? I think it's important to note that North Huron is the only municipality in this part of Huron County that has the ability to service new industrial land. And we ought to be beating the bushes, I think, for encouraging development in that area rather than waiting. I don't think we have to wait for any agreement with Morris Turnberry. We can do the servicing of anything that is going to be developed. I am personally not very confident that we are ever going to reach an agreement with Morris Turnberry on the servicing. And I think if we're waiting for that to happen, we may be waiting until the end of our term and maybe something for the next council to consider. I think we ought to consider in our plans the possibility that we will not ever have an agreement with Morris Turnberry on servicing. And it doesn't do any harm to, I mean, it would be better if we made the agreement. I'm not against the agreement, but I think we need to be taking an alternate route in case that agreement never happens. And in the meantime, we can develop any piece of land that's in Morris Turnberry, in North Huron. Whether it's ready for servicing or not.
I think we're sort of maybe waiting on those other studies to be finished, on the joint study where a number of the required studies have to be done. I think the environmental assessment, it would be August before that would be completed on the properties that are being looked at in the two municipalities. That I'm not saying that we shouldn't pre-advertise, but that's one of the things that I personally look at, that we definitely be ready for, to promote them once the studies are done. Go ahead, Brock.
But I don't think this should prevent us from looking at properties in the Blythe area or in East Wawanaw.
Definitely not.
And it doesn't hurt us to look at them now, and there may very well be out there business people who are prepared to pay the costs of preparing and doing all the studies and servicing. And it's so important to this community that we do industrial development, and waiting for a year or waiting for Morris Turnberry to come to an agreement with us, I think would be very, very foolish. And I think we need to get that into our planning process immediately and start on it very, very seriously.
Further comments or different subject, Bill?
No,
Whatever?
I'm just actually going to agree with Brock. I think that we've waited long enough, and that I think action should have been happening long before this, because trying to attract any kind of industry or businesses of substantial size requires a long lead time. And we're now sitting waiting for Morris Turnberry to make a decision and an agreement with us, and we're going to be coming out of the gate after everybody's left. There have been several businesses that have relocated in the last little while into the other municipalities to the east of us that we probably may have had a shot at, but too late now.
Okay, Trevor?
So, I will say I don't disagree with either councilor's assessment on where we are in the industrial land strategy in both those wards. I think we need to figure out what our strategy is in those wards and establish what we're gonna do to make those places in those wards viable for development. I don't think Morris Turnberry is waiting for us. We're not waiting for them. We're both sitting back on our hands, waiting for somebody to flinch. We need to have viable conversations, respectful conversations, at a table, negotiating the terms of an agreement. I said it in the land strategy, I'll say it again. We have to do that to what's best for both municipalities. Leave everything else at the door. Check your ego, check whatever else you want to talk about. We need them, they need us. It all works out in the end for everybody. If not everybody's going to be happy with an agreement. That's the old idea of negotiating. But the fact is, we've not called them to set up a meeting, and they've not called us. So we need to figure out what our option is. My opinion is, or my option is, we need to set up an agreement. We need to set up a meeting to talk about an agreement. We can't just wait for them to come. They're not going to call. So we need to be forward about that. And like again, I'm not saying that it needs to be tomorrow, but I think we need to decide when that's going to be.
Brock?
I think that they have a lot more to lose by not coming to the table and reaching an agreement. The problem is that there seems to me to be no common ground between our two positions. There's no common ground at all. They're talking a totally different language. They're way off here, we're way off there. And neither of us is accepting the other's premises. To me, we can already do development. That's what I'm saying. We should be in the development business because we can do the whole thing. It may take time, it'll take some funding, but we have an edge in that we're the only people in this neighborhood who could develop anything because we have water and sewer available for servicing. And so we should be very, very busy now.
If I may, I'm going to say, I think this is one of the things that our new CAO will be tackling the first day she starts. She will be on the learning curve as to how to try and promote and get things moving. And that that's next week, but that's where I'm looking at us starting to move forward, because we have been badly handicapped. As great as our senior management staff have been in the last year, being shorthanded a CAO, somebody needs to pull senior management together to be able to move forward, especially in economic development. Don?
The other thing to keep in mind, we kind of get hung up on Morris Turnberry, but we have to remember as well, we do not have an agreement with Central Huron for any of the lands to the south of Live, which are relatively prime land too, so let you know that.
Brock?
The thing is, we don't have a lot of land available for industrial development. We have some, and some is a lot better than none.
Yes.
And it's just sitting there, waiting for us to take some action. And to me, it seems we're sitting on our hands, not doing anything. Sorry to take so much time, but I feel very strongly about this.
Is there any other concerns or comments from council? Okay. And seeing as we don't have a CAO, we don't have a CAO report. Very good, Kathy. You will give the equivalent of a CAO report.
Just for your information, on your desk tonight, I put a copy of a bulletin that I received today from the Live BIA regarding an upcoming meeting live on April the 9th regarding new garden club in Blythe. So this is just for your information only that I have distributed this. I also got a call from the county today regarding the Huron County Municipal Finance Officers. We were to reply whether we would be attending this by March the 28th, and unfortunately in some emails back and forth, they were sending it to our CAO and then to my wrong email address. I never received this, so I apologize. I have put the agenda on your desk, and if usually, you know, councilors do attend this, as several councilors, it's at Howick this year, so it's fairly close. So if you are planning on attending this, could you please let me know by tomorrow morning so that I can let the county know who will be attending from North Huron. So James, you.
Yes.
So 2 of you for sure. Okay, you can let me know tomorrow. Just 2 other quick things. I would like to share my time with Connie. She has some information she would like to share with you regarding the literary festivals and organization projects, and then following that, Donna would also like some time to,
Okay, I just wanted to give a very quick update. With the, through the funding that we had through the Labor Market Partnership, we were able to hire a festival director for the Alice Munro Festival for 2015. Kate has been able to go through some of the recommendations put forth by Marilyn Simmons' report for the festival, and kind of starting to incorporate some of those changes and some of the things that we should be doing to make a more viable festival. And with that, she has been applying for any funding opportunities that might come up. That sometimes, because they are their own committee, they apply directly, and there will be some coming up that maybe will require the municipality to apply on their behalf. And as those come up, I will be reporting for those, and I will be bringing those forward prior to that. Just wanted to let you know that the festival has applied for an Ontario Arts Council grant, and that was due on March 17th. All that really required was a show of support, and I wrote a letter on behalf of the economic development in the area, saying that due to restructuring, that we are looking to better place the festival as a premier literary event for Huron County and the province of Ontario. So Kate was able to get that application in. It was for $6,000 for the 2016 event. But like I said, she will be looking at different funding opportunities throughout the next few months in order, probably at this point in time, looking towards next year's event. So I will keep you informed as they come up.
Donna?
Okay, thank you. I have a couple of items. So at our last budget meeting, we talked about having a brainstorming date to talk about some of the priorities and issues and things that we want to deal with over the next year. As well, Don has mentioned to you that he also requires a water review meeting. So we would like to pair those two meetings, those two items together in the form of one meeting. And with that, we're suggesting a date of April the 22nd, and that's a Wednesday, and we can have it either in the daytime or in the evening if that is suitable for council. So for the brainstorming part of that session, what I'd like to have is council to each bring forward 3 ideas, concerns, or priorities, issues, or whatever you want to call them, of 3 items for discussion that we can sort through and prioritize from our whole list, and then come up with sort of a strategy on some of the items that we can tackle right away and place them in some sort of an order as to how we go about them. So I would just like to ask again if Wednesday, April the 22nd, is council available at any point through that day or evening to start this session. John, I think you were saying you needed about an hour?
Yeah, roughly an hour should.
So we were thinking probably then if we had, if we were looking for a half day, so probably a 4-hour meeting at most, we'd cut it off at that. So an hour for Dawn, and then somewhere between 2 and 3 hours for our brainstorming session. So is council available that day, and could we go ahead and book that? And what time would suit?
Evening's best for me.
Okay. So if we started, say, at 6:30, would that be suitable? Earlier? Okay. So would you like to try for 6? Yolanda, how soon, how could you be here? 5? Do you want to start at 5 then? Is that agreeable to everyone? Okay. So we'll start at 5 then. And again, if everyone would bring forward their ideas, that would be great, and we'll have a really good session on that date for coming up with some new thoughts and ways of doing things. Okay, second item is I have on your desk is your March 31st quarter of your year-to-date budget comparison. Again, it's based on our draft budget, and once the budget is passed, we'll proceed with some of the adjusting entries and things that we can do once the budget is authorized, and the department heads are in the process of reviewing their sections as well. And again, just to note, the budget presentation will be the first half hour of the April 20th meeting. That will be our presentation to council. And we have picked that date because our new CAO would be on board then, and it would be a good way for her to hear the highlights of the budget as well. So that is April the 20th at 7. A couple of things from the last meeting. Councillor Knott had asked for a list, and some of the other councillors were interested as well. So I've given each of you a copy. This is our Township of North Huron property list. So the first few pages list all the properties that the township owns, and then the second part of that is, and then the middle part is properties that we own in other municipalities, and the back few pages are our building and structure list. So as you can see, this building and structure list is going to add another $50 million to our already asset management plan. So we will be looking at, just to remind you that the assets of replacement cost that the Township of North Huron deals with is about $191 million. So it's no insignificant amount of assets that we have to look after. So you can review those lists, and perhaps there'll be a few moments at the brainstorming session if you wish to have any further questions. Also, at the last meeting, we talked about, and this will be included in our my presentation, my PowerPoint presentation, is the tax examples that we looked at for the various properties. I had that up on the board, and so I've given all of you a copy of that. But again, that will be as part of my PowerPoint for April the 20th. Councillor Hallahan had also requested the amounts paid to actually checks cut to the Blythe Festival in 1 year. So I have a little spreadsheet for you there with that information. And also Councillor Knott had requested the information on the cost for the zoning bylaw. So both of those council questions information are on one page. And with that then is that tax example. So those are those two little spreadsheets that you have there. And the last thing is, some of you, the councillors who have been on council for some time, have had copies of the procurement bylaw over the years, but for the 3 newer ones, I've given you another copy of that for your review. It is one of the items on the big to-do list at one of these points. I'm not sure if we'll tackle it again this year, but I hope to. So you can review it, and if you have any questions on it, then you can certainly jot them in the margins or write it up, and we can discuss that. So I think I'm up to date on all the requests for information that I have at this time, and we're looking forward to the budget presentation on April 20th and the brainstorming session on April 22nd. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Donna. Moving into public gallery questions. Denny?
I have several questions regarding the sign bylaw, so whoever can answer that. What exactly was changed? Was that entire H clause added, or was
Just
there?
amendments to it. If you look, if you want to see the difference between the bylaws, the sign bylaw is on our website.
Okay. The only reason I ask is I'm aware of signs in Blythe that are outside the operational period that's stated here. There are signs in Blythe in front of municipal buildings that are up for much longer than 2 months during a 6-month period. So what is the penalty for that?
The intent of that time period that we put in there is for sidewalk cleaning. So that's why we put in October to May, I believe it is, or April.
Okay.
So that is why we put that in there. We're not hard-nosed about it, as long as, I mean, a lot of businesses leave them out year-round, and we're not going to be out there, you know, being the sign police. But if we do get into cases where they are interfering with our street cleaning or our sidewalk cleaning, we will have to address it. But it's not something that we're going to be chasing people down.
Since the Wingham BIA was brought in on these changes, was the Blythe BIA talked to, as they have people who use signs outside their businesses?
I'm not sure if Connie mentioned it to the to the bike?
No,
No,
yeah.
no, no. We will give Bill a copy of the bylaw and he can take it to the 21, or do you girls want to explain exactly what the BIA is doing in Wingham that has initiated the changes to this? And why we had this meeting?
The BIA in Wingham is actually hoping to introduce sandwich boards and as part of their BIA program, and they're looking at putting significantly more signs up on the street. And correct me if I'm wrong, Kathy, there's not huge changes to this bylaw. It's just kind of more of the placement, and there's not really a whole lot new except for the placement of the signs, which allows for them to be pulled out into the boulevard as opposed to smack against the side of the building. So, and is there anything else that's actually new?
Anchored.
And anchoring, so they will be required to be anchored. But anybody who actually will probably, if you contact your insurance agent anyway, they would probably highly recommend it anyway, as I know that that's what happened in Wingham when they contacted their insurance agent. Their insurance agent came back and said, you know, anchor them so we're not, you know, doing damage, so.
I didn't see it in the bylaw, but is there a cost associated with filing notice with the municipality saying I'm gonna have a sign in front of my business?
There is a fee,
Okay.
and there is a permit that has to be filled out. And that is something that the chief building official looks after, and he will look after the costs and the requirements.
And last one is, how is this going to, especially given that the placement was changed, how is this going to mesh with the, I'm not even gonna remember what to call them now, but the freestanding structures, the parquets, thank you, Bill. The parquet bylaw that was approved last year, too late to be utilized, but you know, it should be in full effect this year.
The idea of the placing of the sandwich boards is to have them where car doors are not going to hit them. That's why we wanted them at the parking lines rather than in between the parking spaces. And we haven't received an application yet for a parquet, so that's not something that we've dealt with at this point.
Any other questions from gallery? Okay. We have 2 points for in camera, so I will ask for a motion to go in camera. Rodney and Simon. All in favor? Carried.